Luke, I am your father.
Today on DirtDauberGarage, we're talking about tools.
Alright guys, I had a friend the other day who I was talking to and said he would love to get into a project like this, but he's a little too intimidated because he doesn't really have the skills, he doesn't really have the tools, he doesn't have a place to work, and so he's afraid to get started. So today we're going to talk about how to address those things. What kind of tools do you need? How can you work around the space limitations that you might have? And how can you grow in the skills that you have to be able to do something like this? First of all, I realize that there's some of you out there who probably have way more experience, way more tools than I do. But I know some of you may be wondering where to start. And so today I'm going to encourage you to jump right in, get you a project, and start working on it. Okay, well, you know what they say, safety first. So there's a few basic things you're going to need before you can get started on a project like this, just for straight safety reasons. Okay, we've picked a few things here. By no means is anything that we're going to talk about today an exhaustive list. We're just trying to give you a few things to think about that you would need to get started. So obviously you want to have some kind of fire extinguisher around. They make the small ones, some that are more old-fashioned like this, but I would definitely encourage you to have some sort of fire extinguisher in your garage, in your shop, when you're working around cars. Yes, sir?
Also, this fire extinguisher is for gas, electrical, and
Trash,
regular.
wood, and paper. Yeah, there's different kinds. This is an ABC. It covers all those, but like I said, they make little ones that are like in aerosol cans. Just have some kind of fire extinguisher, because as you're working around cars, you're working with gas, you're working with spark, you're working with paint. You would much rather spend $20, $30 on something like this and have it if you need it than have your whole project burned to the ground. So some sort of fire extinguisher I would recommend. I would also recommend eye protection. We have several different kinds. You can get these, you'll hear me say today, places like Harbor Freight, even Home Depot. You can buy these pretty much every time I go to Harbor Freight. I just grab a couple of these because they're usually $3 or $4 a piece. We have some that are a little nicer. They're all, rated for this kind of stuff and will protect your eyes. So you want to have some sort of eye protection and then some sort of ear protection. I see a lot of times guys are grinding away with grinders. They're working hard and they don't have any kind of ear protection. If you're going to be grinding for an hour or 2 hours cleaning apart, fixing a body panel, it gets really loud. And so I'd recommend, again, we got these at Harbor Freight. I think they were $5. We have several different ones, and we just try to use these whenever we're doing something that might be a little bit loud, just to protect our ears. The third thing I would recommend, as far as that kind of safety, eyes, ears, and hands. I can't tell you how many times you can see on these gloves right here where there's a hole. That's where it got hit with a grinder or something like that. We go through these things as well. So like I said, every time I go to Harbor Freight, I usually grab a couple eyeglasses. I usually grab a couple of these cheaper little gloves. You can get, they have some that are more expensive than others. These things go up to 50, 60 bucks. Or you can get the ones that are $5. I have found that the cheaper ones tend to do fine. And obviously you get what you pay for. So if you buy the nicer ones, they're going to last a little longer and probably protect you a little more. So I would recommend, these are the cheapest ones you can get. I'd recommend buying somewhere in the middle with these, with your gloves. And then the last thing that I would say is sort of mandatory, besides a fire extinguisher, some eye protection, some ear protection, is protecting your lungs as well. This is just obviously a basic mask. These are everywhere, especially now with coronavirus. And this is for, if you're doing basic sanding or something like that, this keeps the dust out of your lungs. But if you're going to be doing some kind of painting or anything like that, you're going to want to get a respirator that has the right kind of filter on it for what you're doing. These things are not that expensive. I got this off of Amazon. The respirator part I think was maybe $20. The filters were like 20 bucks. So I got $40 in this. I wear this whenever I do any kind of paint or anything like that to make sure that I'm protecting my lungs. Those are the things that I would say are mandatory for safety. There's a few other things I would recommend. A face shield. This is going to be helpful as well if you're doing grinding, because potentially stuff can fly up, not just to your eyes, but to your face. And so just a shield. Again, these come anywhere from, this one was like $4 or $5. You can get these up to 100 bucks, depending on how nice they are. We probably ought to buy a little nicer one and throw this one away. It's so scratched up. But I would recommend that. And then also these kind of gloves, these little plastic rubber gloves, when you're working with paint, when you're working with chemicals, or when you're doing cleanup. I get stuff under my fingernails and it's hard to get out. It stays under there for days. If you can get in the habit of putting these on whenever you're doing anything where your hands are going to get dirty, it's going to make cleanup of your hands especially a lot easier, and it's going to protect your hands from some of the chemicals that are harsh on your skin. Whenever I do paint stuff, I'm using acetone to clean up, and if you are cleaning a bunch of tools and paint guns with acetone for 30 minutes, an hour, it can begin to make your skin tingle and be really just rough on your hands. And so the rubber gloves are great as well. Obviously things like flashlights. We got a drawer here full of flashlights, different kinds. These are great because you can set them up when you're working. They're just, an endless number of lights. But these are kind of safety. I put lights under safety because the better you can see, the safer you'll be. Like I said, this is not an exhaustive list. There's obviously more things you could use and buy besides this. But if you have these basic tools, these basic safety devices, you're on the right start. You're heading in the right direction for where you need to be to start a project like that. This all together, when you look here, you're talking about less than $100 here in safety equipment. And so probably today, the stuff I'm going to recommend for you to get started to do a project like what we're doing is going to be less than probably 500 bucks, which I know 500 bucks is a lot of money, but 500 bucks to get you started on a project, I think is pretty affordable and well worth having this kind of hobby and the satisfaction you're going to get out of working on something like this. So here are the basic safety devices, apparatuses, whatever you want to call them, that I would recommend to get you started. All right, now that we got some of the safety things that you need to get started, we're going to talk about some of the basic hand tools. And so I'm going to talk through some of the tools that I have, and I'm also going to share a little bit of my philosophy about what quality of tools you need to buy to get started. I have almost always, my dad gave me a set of Craftsman tools when I was a kid. You can see, I got a Craftsman toolbox here, and I got my basic Craftsman set that I use. I'm a big fan of Craftsman, and I really think that nowadays there's a lot of good tool sets out there. You want to stay away from the super cheap ones where it's like $20 for a 100-piece set. But if you're buying from Home Depot, Husky brand, or you're buying Craftsman, or even Harbor Freight. I'm going to talk about Harbor Freight a couple times in this video and share some of my thoughts about their tools. For the most part, hand tools today are made pretty well. Obviously Snap-on, obviously Mac, those tools are going to be much higher quality, but they're also going to be extremely more expensive than some basic hand tools that you could get at like a Sears or now Lowe's sells Craftsman. And so let me start by saying this. This Craftsman set right here is 106 pieces, and I got this on sale at Sears probably 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I think it was like $70. And I have been working on cars, my whole life, and I've always had a basic tool set like this, sort of the 150 piece set from Craftsman. And I have been able to do about 90% of the things that I do on cars changing oil, brake jobs, clutches, master cylinders, water pumps, timing belts, all those kind of things. You can do those with the basic tool set just like this right here. It's got most of the things you need. It's got a few deep sockets here. It's got metric on this side, standard on this side. It comes with some smaller sockets as well. They usually come with a couple wrenches, like a 1/2 inch and a 9/16. They've got this screwdriver, which is not great. I use this when I'm in a pinch because it's got these different heads here you can use on it. But I have done, like I said, 90% of the things I've done working on cars has been with this basic tool set right here, a couple extra screwdrivers, and then just an occasional tool that I might need as a specialty tool, like a brake caliper, clamp, or something like that if I'm doing a brake job. But 90% of what I do, you can do with a basic set like this that's less than $100. Sort of the next step up from that is, especially if you're digging into a project to the level we are, where you're doing some suspension stuff and things like that, you're going to want to get some bigger sockets. And so I show you here where I bought some bigger ones here these are from Craftsman. These are Craftsman as well, some deep sockets. And so these sets only go up to, like, the biggest it has here is a 7/8, and then over here is probably like a 19. And so if you need something a little bigger when you start doing U-bolts and springs and stuff, that's a 1 inch right there. 15/16. I also have these in metric. So you're going to need a few bigger wrenches when you're working on something where you're working on suspension sometimes. And so you got your basic tool kit here that's, $70, and then you got a couple things like this. I buy these things when they're on sale. Back when Sears used to have sales, there's not many Sears around anymore, and get these like half price at Christmas and stuff like that. And so these are your basic hand tools, and like I said, 90% of what you are going to do, you can do with that stuff right there. I have a few what I would call maybe specialty tools that are nice things to have, especially if you're going to get into body work and things like that. And so I pulled this out here. This is my body hammer kit. It's got some dollies and a couple different hammers. This is a nice one. This is a Marlin set or a Martin set. I think I paid a couple $100 for this. But you can get a decent set of these for probably $40. I bought a little higher quality of these just because I think I got a good deal on them. They were on sale, and I wanted to get some nice ones so I could learn how to do body work the best I can. Let me take a second here and tell you about my philosophy of what quality of tools to get, because I know people are all over the place. Some people say, oh, you got to buy the best, highest quality tools there are out there, then you'll never have to buy them again. Some people buy super cheap tools and end up breaking the first time you use them. And so I would say, Craftsman is a good middle of the road tool. Like I said, Craftsman, Husky, some of those kits that you get nowadays at Home Depot and places like that are good quality stuff. Even some of the stuff you get at Harbor Freight. And so I would recommend, this is my recommendation, buy a tool that is sort of middle of the road quality. Don't buy the cheapest one that's going to break the first time you use it. But then again, you don't have to go out and buy a $200 set of hammer and dolly bodywork tools. You can buy the $40, $50 set from Eastwood or something like that, and it's going to do just fine. And then here's where my philosophy sort of shifts, is that buy a nice quality tool so it will last and you use it. And then if you wear it out, if you get a set of hammer and dolly and you're using them so much that you wear out that sort of middle of the road tool, then go buy a really nice one. I have never really wore out any of the tools I bought when I bought decent quality tools. I broke some cheap ones and stuff like that, but I'll never have to buy another set of hammer and dollies because these are really nice. I'll probably never have to buy another set of hand tools because of these Craftsman will last me as long as I need them. So, but you don't have to buy Snap-on and Mac and Thornwell. You don't have to buy these super high-end tools to get the job done. Buy something that's good quality and it's going to last. And then if you wear it out, you have a tool that you're wearing out, then go buy maybe a higher quality one, because you're obviously using that tool a lot. All right, here's a few more hand tools that you're going to need. You're going to need a basic set of probably some files. You're going to need some hammers. You're going to need some pliers, some vice grips, vice grips, and some C-clamps. Again, these are basic hand tools that you can get at a place like Harbor Freight. I think I got these hammers at Harbor Freight. I got these C-clamps at Harbor Freight. This is an actual vice grip brand that I don't think they sell at Harbor Freight. This is Craftsman. And so these are, again, basic tools that you're going to need for basic working on cars. Pliers, hammers, vice grips. These things save your life. You got a nut that's all rounded off. You can grab it and pull it off with these. But again, nothing here except for this torque wrench, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Nothing here on this table was more than $15. So you can go and start adding some of this stuff to your tool set. You can find a toolbox on sale. We bought this Husky one at Home Depot. It had a dent in the hood and it was discounted. I got this set of Craftsman toolboxes a long time ago for a Christmas present. I got some money for Christmas and bought these. Again, you don't have to buy super high quality, but you want stuff that's nice, has ball bearing rollers in it, and clicks when it closes. And you can just get you a decent toolbox. Start with maybe just this top one and start filling it up. And as you go, you'll need more. I have screwdrivers here. I have pliers and stuff here. And this is stuff I've accumulated over the years. A lot of this stuff I get at yard sales. I go to yard sales, and a lot of these right here that you see, like this one and this one and this one, they were at a yard sale, and I think I paid $1.50 each for these. They're not the greatest quality. This one says made in Japan. This one says made in Germany. But these things work. I mean, they last. If that breaks for $1.50 after I use it a few times, then that's fine. There are, like I said, some tools that you want to buy a little bit higher quality. I tend to like the vice grip brand of these vice grips. The non-vice grip brands are really cheap. Sometimes they'll bend and twist. The springs will pop out of them. So there are a few things I found that buying the higher quality stuff is worth it. But stuff like hammers, you know, this is a Harbor Freight hammer. I think I paid maybe $10 for it. It's got a hard plastic handle. I have beat the heck out of a lot of things with this, and it's fine. Same thing here. I got this one, I'm pretty sure at Harbor Freight. It was $15 or $20, and they last. If one of these hammers breaks in the next year or two, then I'll just go pay $15 and get another one. It's not that big a deal. Let me mention a specialty tool, because what's going to happen is you're going to get into a project. You're going to accumulate some basic tools. But what I've shown you so far, you're going to accumulate this kind of stuff. A basic set of sockets and wrenches, some channel locks, and some pliers. And you're going to be working on a project one day, and you're going to say, oh, I need a specialty tool. I need a harmonic balancer puller, or I need a torque wrench or something like that. You've got a couple options. You can buy one like I've done here, this Tecton. I got off of Amazon. I did a little research. I read some of the reviews. These got really high ratings. People were really happy with them. And I knew when we started this project that pretty much every bolt on this FJ40 has a torque specification. And so I could have gone first option to a place like AutoZone, and you can rent one of those. You pay $70 for however much it costs. You use it, you have like 90 days. You can take it back and they'll give you your money back. In essence, you're just renting it. That's what they call it, their tool rental program. You can do that. But since I knew we were going to be using it a lot on the engine, on the suspension, on the transmission, and slowing the clutch, I went ahead and bought one. And so that's what I'm recommending is as you go through different projects and you come across specialty tools, if it's something that you think you're going to use more than once, then you may want to consider if you have the money to buy it. I bought this off of Amazon. I think it was $60 or $70. We've used it a dozen times already. As we continue to work on this project, I'm sure it will get used again. And so for me, having one here and not having to go rent it was worth it. But if you don't want to spend $60, $70 on a specialty tool, you can rent almost any of those tools at a place like AutoZone nowadays. So things like channel locks, things like vice grips, things like adjustable wrenches, you're going to use these things hundreds of times. They're not that expensive, and you can just slowly build up your tool supply as you go. Things like this, if you have the money, if you have the need, you can begin to buy a few things like that and have them on hand. One third option I just thought of, you can rent something like this, you can buy something like this, or you can borrow something like this. I have friends that have tools that I don't have, and we sometimes will loan them. I'll loan a friend a tool, or they'll loan me a tool. And so as you begin to work on projects, you'll also meet other guys, join car clubs, things like that. You'll be able to have a network of guys that you can talk to about sometimes having specialty tools. But you don't need to have $1,000 worth of tools to start a project like this. We started with our basic hand tools that I showed you a minute ago. You got $100 in safety equipment. You got maybe $100 in the first set of tools I showed you, $100 here. You can have a total of probably $300 in hand tools and safety equipment to get you started. All right, now we're talking about grinders, the fun part. What we have here is we have 3 different grinders that Judson's going to tell you about in just a second. Why don't you go ahead and tell them about each one of these and the difference here, and then I'll explain a little bit more about it. I'll take this.
So this grinder is a flap disc, and what we use this on is usually parts that are really rusty and they just need a deep clean.
Yeah.
So it gets the majority of the rust off, but it's not, it leaves streaks.
Right, that can dig into the metal if you're not careful. There's different grits you can get, obviously.
This is a cutoff wheel, and we don't use this as much, but it's like if we need to cut a piece of metal off, we would just use this and it would just cut it clean off. And
they call that the death wheel, because if it comes apart,
you're dead. This is a grinder, which is
it's like a flat disc, but it's a hard, like a stone almost.
yeah, it's like, it's basically that, but a stone, what I just said. And it does basically the same thing.
What do we use that for usually?
The same thing, like grinding rust.
Yeah, grinding rust, and then also grinding down welds.
Yeah.
So we have 3 different kind of grinders here, and tell them why we have 3. Why do we have 3 grinders?
We have 3, 1 because we're lazy, and 2 because they're really cheap.
Exactly.
We don't really want to have to, whenever we have to use one, have to change it and then take it off and put it back on and then put it away, and then there's a lot to do. So we just have 3, 1 of each.
Okay. So we have 3 because we're lazy. What did you say the other reason was?
Because at Harbor Freight, these are actually really cheap. They're like $10, and they may not last 10 years, but they'll last about a year, and when they break, we just buy a new one.
Right, exactly. My philosophy on these, this is called Drill Master. I can't remember who the brand name is, but it's a cheap Chinese one from Harbor Freight. And my philosophy is, we buy these things, we get them on sale for $10 a piece. We use them for, I've had ones that last a year, I've had ones that last 4 or 5 years. When they die, we just throw them in the trash and buy a new one. The one thing I don't like about these, and when these die, I may upgrade for a few dollars more. You can get the ones that have a paddle on it. And the good thing about those is these are a switch. And if you just barely bump that switch, it'll cut off. If you drop it, it'll cut off. But the paddle ones are great because as soon as you let go of it, they stop spinning. They're a little safer. But like I said, we have some of these that have lasted 3 3 or 4 years, and I have some that last a year. But for $10 a piece, we just use them till they die, and then we buy a new one. I always have at least 3 or 4 of these. When I go to Harbor Freight, I get glasses, I get gloves, and then if they have these on sale for 10 bucks, I usually pick one up.
Also, the most annoying part about these is we always lose the tools that tighten and loosen these in. That's why we have 3, because it takes us 10 minutes to find the tool.
I've got one right here. I try to keep them all in this drawer, but yeah, these things.
You can see how organized.
Yeah, we tend to lose these things, and then we're trying to hunt for them. So keep them in here. All right, along with grinders, I would put in that sort of same category an electric drill. Now, if you're gonna do body work, if you're gonna do rust work, if you're gonna do any heavy cleaning and automotive type stuff, get at least one of these. The attachments, these flap wheels, these cutoff wheels, these stone grinders, you can see I got a drawer full of them. They come from Harbor Freight in a pack like this. Here's the cutoff wheels. I think there's a 10-pack right there, and that's like $5. The grinding stones right here, and flap wheels, they are, you know, $3, $4 a piece.
Also, the wire wheels.
Those are good for cleaning rust. Wire wheels. You can also get this stuff at Home Depot. We take these little guards off because they're a pain. You really ought to leave these on for safety reasons. I've never had a cutoff wheel or a grinding stone come apart on me, and that's because I change them when they start to get little nicks. This is a good example right here. This one right here, this cutoff wheel's got a little, I don't know if you can get it, right there it's got a little nick in it. This wheel would probably be fine to go, you know, but I'll probably just change it out because these are $1 a piece. And if you change these often, same with your your flap wheels and your grinding stones, they're pretty safe. Wear eye protection, stuff like that. Obviously having the guard on there would be better, but it makes it hard sometimes when you're trying to get into a tight spot or something and this big guard is on it. So safety first, you really should leave them on. Okay, power drills. This is a DeWalt. Obviously DeWalt is good quality. Harbor Freight makes some of these as far as the cordless drills, all different kinds, Milwaukee, Makita. I mean, there's tons of these. I happen to get this as a gift. I've been very happy with DeWalt. A drill is something, and you don't have to have a cordless one. I have a corded one. They have cordless cutoff wheels as well. Those are nice. They cost more. I would say if you have one cordless tool, have a cordless drill, because I use this thing all the time, not just in the shop on the car, but in the house. I'm putting up blinds. I'm working on cabinet doors. This has been really handy. So if you have one cordless tool, I would say make it a cordless drill. If you can't buy a $200 one, get a $50 one. There are reviews on YouTube. You can check out the reviews, and they have ones that are very affordable and good quality. Well worth it to invest in a couple cordless tools just to have them. Judson?
This is a question that the viewers might have. What about the air tools?
Air tools. Good question. I have some air tools. You've seen, if you watch my videos, I get my air tools are mostly in here, wherever they are. Staple gun. This came with the compressor I got. Here we go. Cordless ratchet. This stuff is great. Air tools are nice. You know, 10 years ago, if you were doing any kind of serious automotive working, everybody had cordless. I mean, everybody had the air tools, the pneumatic ones, and they are helpful. They're great. Now you see these with these lithium batteries. Everybody's going more towards the cordless. I would like to get a cordless socket driver, but just like I'm telling you, you don't have to have all that stuff to do the job. Here we are restoring a 1977 FJ40 almost to factory specs. This thing's going to be close to as nice as it was when it came off the production line, and we're using mostly hand tools. Like I said, I have a couple air tools. obviously for painting. In one of my other videos, we talked about the Harbor Freight paint guns. You need to have a compressor to do some of that stuff. You need to have a decent compressor, and not one of those little tiny pancake ones that are $99. You need to probably get one that's a 30-gallon tank, 40-gallon tank, 150 psi to do paint and some of those things. But again, you don't have to have the best. And let me say this, I like to shop around. And if you shop around and you do Craigslist and things like that, I got that compressor for free. A guy, friend of mine, a neighbor, was upgrading. He got a nicer compressor. He'd had that one for many years. He didn't want it. He said, "Hey, I got a new nice one. Do you want this one?" But even if I didn't get hooked up with a free deal like that, that compressor on Craigslist would be $100. Stuff like these DeWalt cordless drills and stuff. These are $250 with a couple batteries at Home Depot. You can find them on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace for $100. So shop around and just kind of grow slowly. Get a couple tools to get started, and then when you get to the point where you can't do a job that you're working on because you don't have a cutoff wheel, then go spend $25 and get one with a couple cutoff wheels, and then you've got it. Put it in your toolbox, you're good to go. Then when you get to where you need to do something where you got to have a cordless drill, then get you a cordless drill. And the tools that I have, which is not a lot really, compared to a lot of guys who do these kind of projects, it's stuff that I've accumulated over the years slowly. So get your basic hand tools, get a couple grinders, and get a project. And then as you work and as you do more projects, your tools will grow. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about is a welder. Some of you may be thinking, well, I can't do a car project without a welder. Welders are expensive. And I would say the answer to that is yes, you can do car projects without a welder, and no, they're not expensive. Obviously, if you're going to replace panels like we've done the quarter panels on this, and you're going to get heavy into doing any kind of fabrication, a welder is nice to have. But you can get one at a reasonable price. I was looking just the other day on Facebook Marketplace, and there was a welder that's exactly the same as mine for $100. And the guy said, works great. He just upgraded. I bought my welder at Home Depot. It is a Lincoln 2500 Mig Welder, and it could be used for gas, or it could be used with the flux core. The difference between those is both use gas. It's just one has the gas in the wire that shields around the weld, the flux core does, while you're welding to keep the weld clean and keep any impurities out. The other is with a gas bottle of argon, and I have a bottle. We have ours hooked up to do the flux core, and that's a little bit messier, doesn't have as clean of a weld. Definitely hook up the argon if you can. You'll get a cleaner, better weld. We're just kind of lazy, and I got a big wire, big spool of the flux core, and we've just been using that because it's quick and easy. You just plug it in, you can weld, and you're done. There's a little bit of splattering. They call it slag. It doesn't make quite as clean a weld, but for us it's worked fine. And I saved up my money, had a couple Christmas gift cards to Home Depot, and I think I paid maybe $300 or $400 for my welder. But again, you can buy the basic welder, a Lincoln, or even some of the Harbor Freight. I'm not as familiar with the quality of their welders, but I've been very happy with my welder. Done a lot of projects with it. It's never given me any problem. It runs great off of 110. If you're not doing major welding where you're welding frames together and doing huge things, stuff like sheet metal and stuff like that, it works great. It takes a little time to learn, and so since we're talking about that, let me say a little bit about skill, because we've talked about the basic tools that you need. And so how are you going to learn to do these things like welding, like suspension, like brakes, like clutches? And I would say to that, the best way to learn it is to just jump in and do it. I had never done a brake job. The first time I tried a brake job, now I've done hundreds of them. I'd never done a clutch until I did my first clutch. You learn how to do it as you go. So jump in. There's obviously things you can do, especially with things like welding. You can get some sheet metal from Home Depot, or maybe you have some old bed frames or stuff laying around your shop, your garage, and you can practice welding, you can learn to weld. But I think the best way to learn to do the things that we've learned to do is to do them. I have done basic body work. I've never really done much painting until we did this. I haven't done near as much suspension work and stuff like that until we jumped on this project. And so the best way to learn is to jump in and do it. Talk to some friends, find somebody you know that has some skills that you want to learn, and ask, can you come over? Can you help them? I always am open to guys coming over and helping me on the project, hanging out, drinking a beer while we're working, and I'd be glad to show them or let them try and work with me on something. So use friends, use YouTube. Pretty much every video, as you know, you're watching this video, there are hundreds of videos on how to do these things, how to do body work, how to work on suspension, how to put in a clutch, how to do brakes. And so you can watch YouTube, read, join some forums. If you're into Toyotas, go to Toyota forums. If you're into Chevrolets or Camaros or whatever you're into, there's a forum out there with guys telling you how to do these things. And so I'd say jump in and do it. The last thing I want to address is space. And I know that this is one of the hardest things. We're lucky that we have a little shop here. It's obviously very messy and full of stuff. We work hard to try to keep it clean and organized. Show them our bins up there, Judson. We try to keep this place clean and organized. It's a daily battle to clean it, but I know that having a space like this is a huge blessing, and for most of you guys, you don't have it. If you live in an apartment or a condo and you're not allowed to work out in the parking lot and you don't have a garage space, I know that's tough. See if you have a friend that has a garage that they'd let you have half of it. See if you can potentially rent space. There are people that rent spaces to work on cars, to store cars. But most of us have a garage. If you're like me, my garage is full of bicycles and scooters and skateboards and sporting equipment. And so before I had this shop in our old house, I made sure I organized that stuff the best I could. I built shelves and got stuff up out of the way. And when I worked on projects, when I did clutches, when I did brakes, I would pull the cars out. I would put all the bikes up. Sometimes we'd pull the bikes out into the driveway. I would use the garage and then put everything back. I know that's a pain, but be creative. Find places where you can store stuff. Maybe you have a shed out back where all your tools are. You can work under one of those 10 by 10 tents that you get at Dick's Sporting Goods, or the old shade tree mechanic. You have the tree in your backyard. There's been many cars that have been worked on in somebody's backyard under a tree. So my best advice to you is get a few basic tools, find a place where you can wrench, get a project, and get out there and start working. There's no better time than now to learn and to get going. So good luck. If there's ever anything I can do, feel free to email me, DirtDauberGarage@gmail.com. Comment on our videos. I'm glad to help, give advice, recommend somebody else or something else. Anything I can do to help, let me know. Thanks for watching.